in your little corner, wherever you are, whether you're using it to write or you're using it to read, or maybe you're applying it in some other things that you probably be
Even your
doing.
WhatsApp now.
You know,
can
I
use
mean,
it on WhatsApp, Facebook, it's everywhere.
it's everywhere really. But we want to talk about it from the premise of health. We're talking AI and the digital health management. Somto Mbelu is an AI ethics and data governance researcher here with us in the studio to talk about this. Good to have you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Charles.
Good morning.
It's nice to be here.
How do you do?
Pius, yeah, fine.
You know, we've seen AI in several ways, in how you can apply it and even give you accuracy, almost 100%. In some places, even at 100%. In health, we have even seen AI being construed or constructed into health programs, like even doing surgeries abroad and even across Europe. But I'm just wondering, do you think that there's this downside to AI at all? Many persons have said that the use of AI could mean loss of jobs. How so?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here. And yeah, the conversation around artificial intelligence and advancing universal health coverage, you know, ensuring that everyone have access to quality and affordable health care. And Nigeria, of course, you know, over the years have been, you know, bedeviled by issues around people not having access to quality and affordable health care. Issues around low manpower, you know, having our health workers migrate abroad, you know, to access care. Issues around non-functioning primary health care centers. Issues around people not being able to afford, you know, health care, you know, as when they need it, right? And over the years, you know, we start looking at how do we start ensuring that we can look at innovative means that people can start accessing healthcare. And of course, you know, the conversations around artificial intelligence, telemedicine, right? You know, people are already saying that, you know, with advent of telemedicine, individuals can give care to people in the village. So you can imagine, let's say, if someone who do not have access to quality, you know, doctors can now probably, with your telephone, you can, you know, speak to a doctor in Singapore, speak to a doctor in the US, and all that. So these are all, you know, exciting advantages of integrating artificial intelligence to expanding access to healthcare. But just like you've asked me, you know, how do we start looking around it? Issues around manpower shortage. Just like every other thing in life that have advantage, of course there are always a downside. But to me, in this conversation, I think we should start looking at how do we start, you know, having to, you know, balance, you know, the both sides. As we could also see, people can access healthcare to speak to individuals, you know, who can give them those quality healthcare. But at the same time, we could also see that for those platforms to work, you know, you need people to manage it. You need people who also are well trained, you know, and have the manpower to administer those platforms that we're able to access, that give people access to healthcare. So AI can't work on its own. It still needs individuals or people to really use those platforms, and that's where you could start looking at issues around, you know, training, issues around advocacy, to say, yes, AI is good, but at the same time, we also have to, you know, train our people and guide our people to see how you could move along using these platforms, instead of having those platforms outrun us, operating without having the adequate manpower to use them.
Interesting. But I'm just wondering, though, I mean, given what you have said, what are the ethical issues you think that AI could have, especially if it starts integrated in Nigeria?
Oh yeah, a lot. You know, there are conversations around issues around privacy, data privacy, and data breaches. We see issues around, lack of facilities, that will really power these AI devices. During while answering your question earlier, I said someone, for example, can be in a remote village in, let's say, in Onsoka, and be able to access, healthcare via a digital platform or artificial intelligence telemedical platform, speaking to a doctor in California, right? And some weeks back, I also saw something where a doctor in I think in China was able to conduct a surgery remotely in another city, and people were wowed by that. But the question is, in Nigeria, do we have the electricity? Do we have the facilities? Right? Do we have the internet? How connected are people? And I have these conversations with people when you go for international meetings and international conferences, and they're talking about how the Nigerian market is so good, for penetration of telemedical platform because of that they say we are we are a country of 200 million people, and with the young people being a huge part of that number. And not only that, if you also convert, people say these 200 million people have mobile phones, So saying if these individuals have mobile phone, that means that we could find a way to, move access to care via these mobile phones. But there are questions around, do these individuals have light to charge these mobile phones? Do they have data on these mobile phones? Are they also well educated to understand how these mobile devices work, right? And you can also see that most of the time we have devices, and most people don't also know the things or how these devices work and the role that they could play. So these are silent issues around data privacy. Also, when people are also using this platform, for example, we have now everyone is talking about insurance, and we can also see that the whole lot of digital insurance organizations or companies are coming up with, now you can buy health insurance via your mobile phones, right? And most of the time you're being asked to input some information on these phones. We're also asking issues around data privacy. How do the information we provide to these digital platforms, how are they managed? How are they used, right? And we could also see, of course, recently, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Nigeria came up with their NDPR, Nigerian Data Privacy Act or law, And but the question is, how encompassing do that law, cover in terms of data privacy and data regulation? And I tell people, the law is quite a generic law, right? Because imagine you having a law that, people are expecting that health will plug in, finance will plug in, agriculture will plug in. But understanding that these organizations are these sectors are quite very distinct with their own peculiarities. Example for the healthcare sector, we understand how delicate the healthcare sector is. And the question is, we have to start looking beyond, to start looking at how do we also start designing, sector-specific laws that will really speak to the needs of these various sectors. For example, in finance, we could also see some years back, some few years back, where when people go to the loan sharks to get some loans, and if they default or if there's any error in that transactions, and then you're passing, people are sending messages with the information they have to your contacts. Either they say, they try to defame your character or try to put up some information and all those things. So you can imagine all these laws being covered with the data protection law, which is of course an offshoot of the GDPR, the European, data protection law. So we should, start looking beyond that to start looking at how do we start, also creating sector, specific laws that will start speaking to the needs of this, sector. So issues around data privacy, issues around having, not having the right facilities, to fast track, the use of this platform, and also biases too. Right, so there's this company in America some years back, that because of the data that was generated by those platforms, it shows that, the black people and the white people, the black people, have some tendencies of, having some ailments, right? And of course, it was also, the data also shows the same thing with the white, but somehow the platform already read it in such a way, shooting up the cost of insurance, for the other black people. And these are conversations that as we are all excited about the gains and, the advantages of AI, so it's also very, very critical and important that we start looking at, the downsides of, these platforms, and ensure that as it's moving very fast, we're also building, strong, frameworks, and data protection laws to really, speak to them, especially in the specific sectors.
I mean, Nigeria still has a big problem with even having to have the data of its own citizens. I mean, census was done around 2006, and that's been a very long time. Even this estimate of we having 200 people in Nigeria is just some people giving such estimates. But then again, I would like to ask, a lot of people would still have reservations about AI, feeling unsafe, just like you said, data protection and all of that. I don't feel, that safe giving. How do we manage that in the healthcare sector of having to, give my healthcare information to an AI? How do we start bringing people to that understanding?
Yeah, that's a very excellent question. And, I say the simple co-creation, right? We have to start moving to the aspect of co-creating and designing these platforms with the users, right? The WhatsApp and the Facebook and all you use, they design and give us, and we just, use it, whether you like it or not. So I think we have to start getting into the era that we start looking at how do we, start becoming part of the designs of these platforms. And for example, I have conversation with some CEOs and some software designers. I said, why you design this platform? What are the guidelines? How do you, for some people say, oh, we go through the Nigeria Data Protection Law, ensuring that everything aligns. And remember, I told you that that law is generic, right? And some will say, oh, we'll build according to the specifications of the funders and people who give us grants. And some will also say, oh, probably we just design and deploy. But I think we have to start moving to the extent and saying, before we design these platforms, it's very, very important that we start, co-creating, getting, all array of stakeholders in the room, so we can also understand the needs and aspiration of people who are going to use this platform, people who this platform are being designed for, and also, to understand their needs and aspiration. And not only that, it's also very, very also important. We start looking at contextual use of these platforms, right? Sometimes the platform that will be good in the north might not be good in the south. We can start looking at environmental factors, religious factors, cultural factors, and all those things. So these are areas that are very, 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 very critical. So it's very important that people are carried along. So imagine you being part of the design of a healthcare app that you are going to end up using. It creates confidence. It creates, ownership. And it's a win-win situation for everyone, because whoever that is designing this platform will know that, of course, I have people who are excited to plug into these platforms and use these platforms, and not just you designing and deploying. And that way, we could also start seeing issues around people understanding how their data is being used and managed. And also, we also start saying that it's high time we have some strong frameworks, data protection, AI frameworks that also guide these design frameworks, contextual frameworks that our software designers can really, at least use it to start off, to design these platforms.
Yeah, quite interesting conversation we're having here. It does look like those who established this AI in the first place didn't think of the regulations. It was just recently that they started talking about these regulations.
Yes, so that's why you could hear the buzzwords of responsible AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah, responsible AI because of how fast the internet is moving and how fast development of AI platforms are moving. People are trying to playing catch up to say, see, if we don't, run with this to start looking at how we guide this thing, this might become problem. You could see some cartoon and some sci-fi movies where you create robots that are working for you, and suddenly the robot, just grows wild and all those things. So from years back, we are so excited about designing these platforms, and we could also look at the generative aspect of AI platforms, GPT. And Gemini and all those things where most people are using it to write exams, and and people are using it to write tests, and and now people are also looking at there was a time you had this stuff on Twitter that was buzzing that a lecturer marked down, rejected a document because there's some words. I think the person used delve or something. I was like, no, this like a machine related kind of and generative.
Actually, that's like ChatGPT's most used word. Yes, delve.
So as this platform are coming, the world is now playing catch up, and that's why you see there's every day this strong effort to start putting, laws, sustainable laws, to start, putting guide and regulating this. And, just like every other thing, Africa is trying to play, catch up, in terms of having very, very strong, governance framework and data system to really guide all these processes. And we can also see that that recently the Minister of Digital, that's what it's called, Economy, Bosun, I think they started artificial intelligence, strategy, where they are also calling experts on AI safety, and security, So we start looking, and I'm sure that conversation is around, let's start, building, systems that will start. And I'm sure because he's in the system, and he understands, and that's why they're also looking at, that angle.
Okay, but then, this is healthcare. Just like you said, people now use AI to write exam, write tests, and then healthcare is quite different. I mean, I'm a designer. I can sit down, if all they need is codes and datas, majorly datas. What if I just input datas and then, it just works with the AI? There's no need for doctors anymore. There's no need for nurses anymore. How do we now balance healthcare students, resident doctors who are having to go to school now, being challenged or in a competition with the AI?
Well, that's a good question, and that's why you could see that I talked about co-creation, right? That two things. One was we had to start looking at sector-specific, AI frameworks and laws, right? That would be able to guide the design of this platform. So, for example, in healthcare, healthcare has its own principles and ethical principles and frameworks, and that guides the healthcare industry. So you could see how delicate it is that we are using the GDPR that is for everybody. We're talking about different sectors. So there should be deep conversations on how do we ensure that the principles that are from aligns with the healthcare is also guarded in the design of these platforms, and also carrying the designers of this platform along. For example, having software designers that don't have any healthcare background, designing digital healthcare background, is kind of dangerous, right?
Yes.
So it's important that these things designed, there are frameworks that will guide the design of these platforms. So, for example, imagine someone is saying, oh, you have to design a software, for maybe an EMR for healthcare, right? And they give you a template, a framework to follow. So even if you're from another part, but you have a guide on how that design should go. Also adding into a co-creation kind of system where you get to work with other users, designers, policymakers, and people in the ecosystem. It gives you a full, guidance and support in designing and deploying this platform, and not just you, just working in
Isolation,
silo,
yeah.
in isolation.
Yes, yes. Okay, well, I'm sure a lot of people will want to ask this question. Nigeria and AI, where are we? Are we close? Are we there? I mean, when it comes to things like this, where it's important, not just doing my assignment and getting my tests done, are we close to the world standard, or are we still struggling?
I don't know if you saw something on Twitter the other day, that the budget, for the, I think, Nigeria Space Research Center, what was in their line budget was designing. They said it was, going for voluntary, going for designing schools, doing some voluntary activities, doing agriculture and all those things. That was the figures or the information that was seen in their space research. That is supposed to be highly, very, very, very technical, and you could see that has supposed to have some very, very strong, technical components that really speak to what the objective of the organization, right?
Yes.
Also, some few days ago, we also have the minister to say that they have Minister of Digital Economy, right? Economy, right?
Yes.
That they launched 100 million artificial intelligence fund, right? And he was excited in that, and you could also see some people to say that's about 60-something thousand dollars that can't even buy a NAVDAQ chip, to advance if it's really AI they're talking about, right? So I think that we are far behind, and that's why if you're also coming up with conversation about in the healthcare industry, you're talking about artificial, most people look at you that we are still talking about access to healthcare, having a functioning healthcare system. You're talking about artificial intelligence. So I can tell you Nigeria is still far behind. But that doesn't mean that some private companies and individuals are starting and doing amazing stuff, on their own, right? And that shouldn't stop us from designing. Of course, that's what it should be. Before something grows big, we should already have laws, 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, 20 years ahead of time, and start projecting. And as it grows, we update those laws.
How quickly do you think we can run off to catch up? Given that AI is making things a little easier than normal, do you think we can be quick? Because you just mentioned something about access to healthcare. I mean, we're not there yet in terms of access to healthcare across board. Even the budget for our health system is abysmally low. So I'm just wondering, do you think AI can help in reaching out to places and persons that hasn't been reached?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The role of artificial intelligence in advancing universal health coverage, the role is, what it can do is so amazing, right? And we're also talking about now that our doctors are going to UK, our nurses are going to UK, are going to Canada, and going to all those places. So as all this are happening, it's important we start looking at how do we start employing, and just permit me to call it soft AI, systems that we can put in place that can at least, help access to quality and affordable healthcare. So I still believe that in as much as, we don't have the so-called facilities, but we can start from somewhere and start looking at, deploying stuff, digital platforms. And we have a whole lot of, startups in the healthcare space who are developing, digital AI platforms that people can connect to doctors, people can access healthcare, and also people can also buy healthcare via their mobile phones, And I also think that apart from that, they're also strong. There should also be strong advocacy, training and empowerment, around, building capacity, of people around digital technology, and using, deploying the technology. And I think government should start investing on that, There's also this young guy who recently, bought Starlink, for his community in Wo, right? And he says that since he did that, you could see there are a lot of, it has helped the community in terms of connecting them, to the world, So you can imagine a whole community being powered by internet, the advantages, you know, are limitless. So it's important that we invest, start looking at, you know, startups that are already, you know, pushing AI, you know, and see how government can support those, you know, startups to help them push access to, you know, quality and affordable healthcare, especially in the, you know, grassroots and places that you might not really get healthcare workers to access. And also issues around advocacy and empowerment and training. It's also very important that, you know, we start, you know, looking at how do we start, you know, empowering and training our community, our young people, you know, the use of, you know, technology, you know, and how it works, even our market women and all those things, you know, soft, you know, skills, right?
I was about to say that a lot of people still don't even understand the full usage of AI. They just think it's just to ask questions.
Exactly.
They just, what is this, plus this, plus this.
Exactly. I'm not even talking, going to AI
It's
so
too
long.
much, yes.
We also start looking at how just simple digital skills, right? Using computers, being able to understand how it works, right? Even, you know, helping our teachers to, most teachers don't even, I've never seen a laptop, you know, most primary school or local teachers, you know,
Yes.
some schools just have one laptop, you know, or one, you know, digital platform. And, you know, and that's why I think the governor of Enugu State is not doing bad. You know, we could see what he's doing with, you know, building of smart schools, you know, at different local government. And I think that that's so amazing, right? So that people could, you know, have access to this technology and see it and see how it works, you know, and feel it, you know. So when you're now moving them to start talking about artificial intelligence, it doesn't look very big. It's something that they can, you know, use and access.
All right. Just to finally close it out, just to mention, can you just talk in passing, just in 1 minute, what kind of training should we be looking out for those who are going to be involved in health sector as it relates to artificial intelligence?
Well, like I mentioned, you know, like I mentioned earlier, there's no very specific training, which I just have to say that, you know, as our healthcare workers are coming out and people are deployed to facilities and all that, there should be strong, you know, provision in terms of, you know, guiding them, you know, in the use of, you know, how to at least being able to use some, you know, platforms that are provided, you know, and also how to, you know, administer them and how to use them, deploy them and all that. And not just really the doctors and medical people, just the general populace, you know. Basically we should invest in building the digital, you know, skills, you know, awareness and advocacy of our people, awareness for our people. So when they see these things, they know how it works. And how to, because the truth is, for the person to be able to contact someone by their telephone, you should understand how to do it, how it works, you know. And not only that, we also start looking at how do we start powering. Most of these communities don't have light. Most of them, the network is bad. You understand? So how do we, government should start looking at how do we start providing these amenities, you know, so that you don't have people crowded in the city. Even in your village, you can access some of these things, you know. So I think that's the word I just add to that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Somto Mbelu.
Thank you
for your time.
Thank you.
He's an AI ethics and data governance researcher, and he's giving us an insight into AI and digital health management as it concerns the third world and what we could actually expect in a few years from now. We're back shortly, right after this.